So, hi everyone, I'm Robertino Martinez, and I want to talk a little bit about building on Cardano. So, I'm going to argue that builders are fundamental for the success of the ecosystem. It's not a hard thing to argue about, so let's do it quickly. If something is useful, people will use it. This is true about every product ever. Programmable blockchains by themselves are not useful enough to reach mass adoption. So we need product or services on top of it. And builders are the ones that create those products and services. On top of this, there is this basic economic reality that if we happen to have more builders, there are going to be more projects and improvements to existing ones. A subset of those, maybe a small subset of those, but still a subset of those, will increase the utility of the ecosystem because they will be like useful products or services. Not all of them will be useful, but if we have more, we have greater chances of having useful ones. And that will increase the economic activity of the ecosystem, which brings more builders that are interested in capturing that, and the flywheel goes and goes. That's in theory. Reality is not that simple, but the basics of the economic system still works that way. That means that we can extrapolate for that more builders means greater potential utility. There are more people working on products, which means there are higher chances of creating useful products. Which means that we can indirectly compare potential utilities of different ecosystems by comparing the amount of builders. We can use this data set by Electric Capital that tracks all commits for all the major blockchain ecosystems. And from there, we can sort of like get a few conclusions. They are going to be a little bit dire, but we have to face the facts. So let's compare developer activity of Cardano against Ethereum and Solana. Why Ethereum and Solana? Well, they are our competitors, at least functionality-wise. And they are the ones that we look that developers look into when choosing which technology they want to use to build their company. In June 2026, this is a snapshot of a single point in time. When I did the analysis the first time, we can see that all developers of Cardano were 678, less than 700. Ethereum was over 11,000, and Solana 4,500, which means that the ratio between ETH and Cardano was 70 times more, and the ratio for Solana is like almost 7 times more developers. This doesn't look good, but it gets worse. Why? Because if we look at new developers that are new to blockchain ecosystem in general, it turns out that they are way more likely to go to Ethereum and Solana than to Cardano. So not only they are bigger, they are getting bigger faster. I'm going to argue, well, this is like one snapshot. So you can say, you choose like a bad month to make the snapshot. I mean, we can look this through time. Like this is from April of 2020, which is when we started the Electric Capital dataset, started having enough data about Solana that we can start comparing. So on average, Ethereum grows by almost 2,000 developers a year, which is almost 3 times our total current amount of developers. Solana grows by 800 on average, by 884 devs a year, which is 1.3 times our total current amount of developers. And relative to Ethereum and Solana, Cardano has had virtually no growth in the last 6 years, with an average of 82 developers a year. It's hard to compare these numbers. Like, the scales are too different. So let's do just a little bit of data analysis to clean this up. Let's compare this visually using a logarithmic scale, so we can look at the shape of the individual. We can look at the growth of each individual ecosystem, controlling for the exponential growth due to network effects. Like, bigger ecosystem grows by a bigger amount because they are already big. Taking into account that, even in that case, the growth rate, it's a little bit small here, but the growth rate of Cardano is 0.157. The growth rate at the logarithmic scale, the growth rate of Solana is 0.342, so like twice. And the growth rate of Ethereum, 0.214. Now, we cannot make a huge assumptions from this, because we can see that the regression doesn't perfectly fit the curves. And we know that, for example, Solana had a huge growth at the very beginning, and then it's more or less stable. So we have to take that into account, and we can calculate the rolling window of 360-day growth rate of each one. So this will tell us how fast each one grows, and it's controlled through time. We can see that Cardano has had a huge anomaly in 2020. But after that, we mostly had less growth than the rest of the ecosystems. In this way, at least we are controlling for different in size. Like, now we can compare one-to-one with the ecosystems, but there's still, like, you can see that the three curves move sort of together. The reason of that is because wide market events. So, like, the whole industry moves up and down because of external reasons. To control for that, we can do a direct comparison between only these ecosystems. So what I did is I took the growth rate of Solana and Ethereum, I calculated the average, and I subtracted that from the growth rate of Cardano. That way, we eliminate the factor of the movement of the whole ecosystem, and we just compare these three ecosystems concretely. That gives us the Cardano relative growth rate versus our controls. This is our final, I promise. This is the final, and this tells us when it's 0, it means that Cardano is growing at the same speed that the other ecosystems. Not at the same amount, because Ethereum is almost 2,000 and Cardano is 84. So 0 will be like each ecosystem is growing at the same speed relative to its size. So 0 is already a bad thing, for us at least. 0 means each year 2,000 more to Ethereum, only 84 to Cardano, and over like 10 years, we are just a speck. So we need positive numbers here. And as you can see, except for the anomaly in 2020, for virtually all 6 years except during 2023, Cardano grew slower than the competition. This is a fact, and I think no one can argue that. Now, what we need to figure out is why. There are multiple reasons that we can discuss. I'm going to focus on one, and that's developer experience. I think developer experience plays a huge factor. And not only trust me, bro, because I've been using the tooling and teaching hundreds of developers how to use the tooling for years, but I'm going to try to convince you with survey results. So as you can see, the average years of experience of developers in Cardano is incredibly high. So like, let's say 70% of Cardano developers are senior or close to senior. That's way off compared to the average in every other ecosystem. That could mean that we are so cool that seniors want to work with us, or that could mean that we are so hard to work with that juniors just give up. I will argue it's the second one. Another thing that we can see in the results is that when developers were asked the question, what should be the biggest priority on the Cardano technical roadmap? Mind you, these had really important things like scalability, node diversity, a bunch of really, really important work streams. The second and third most voted options were better documentation and explainers and accessibility and use case enablers. This shouldn't be the answer, the top priority, biggest priority of an ecosystem of over 10 years. Then we have the question of what do you think is the biggest pain point of Cardano developers ecosystem? There were over 60 answers to this one, and 83% were about poor developer experience. Some of them were asking about like improving throughput. Some of them were asking about lacking features that Cardano doesn't have, but overwhelmingly were about poor developer experience. To make like a recap of all those 60-something answers, we can sort of like put them together into immature and fragmented tooling, like libraries and tooling across languages are incomplete, inconsistent, and don't work well together. Poor documentation and onboarding, we have no unified up-to-date documentation or blessed path for newcomers. Learning materials are scarce and scattered across sources. Steep learning curve. The extended UTXO model and functional programming requirements create significant friction. Subpar developer experience. These are from people that work on other ecosystems. No cohesive development environment, unfriendly abstractions, and going from zero to working dApp is difficult to pair to EVM ecosystems. And finally, lack of ecosystem coordination. Duplicate efforts, unawareness of existing work, and no clear vision for architecture standards. Teams reinvent the wheel instead of building on shared foundations. This is like sort of like the final recap of what you can derive from the survey, although I do recommend looking at the whole survey because it has interesting insights. So, what do we do about it? This was my thought process. Developer adoption requires a substantial improvement in developer experience. It's not that improving developer experience will automatically give us a bunch of developers. There are more to it, but we at least need to improve developer experience. And this I didn't show you, but if you look at the survey, you will see it. There's no single entity, tool, or website with enough developer share to fix the developer experience if we work on it. It's not like, oh, let's just work on Aiken, and that's it. Like if we make Aiken the best language ever, everything will be solved. Well, not. Like there's way more to developing your company, a product, a service on top of Cardano than just an on-chain language. So, I think This is my pitch. I think we need to work together to improve Cardano's overall developer experience. And when I arrived to this, I'm not sure if I had an epiphany or something wrong in my brain, but I decided to pitch this as, let's treat Cardano developer experience as a product. What if the whole experience of developing in Cardano can be thought of as a single thing, not like Aiken's developer experience versus Mesh versus Plinth versus whatever, but like a developer that just interacts in Cardano in general has a developer experience. What if we could make that product more enticing to people that don't really care about Cardano? That they just want to build a product and they will pick the one that is easy to build on. So we have to make it enticing for them to choose Cardano over alternatives. And because there's no single tool that has all the developer share, we have to work together in multiple tools. So we have the product, we have developer experience. So what will we do about it? Like what we do with every product, we create a strategy. What's the vision? This is my pitch, but feel free to like fight me on this. I'm fine with it. So my vision is, as a builder new to Cardano, I have no idea about Cardano, I want to go from 0 to an MVP on testnet in under 2 weeks. Not the MVP you choose for me, but the one that I want to make. So that I can validate whether Cardano is the right platform for my project/career without a large upfront investment. That's the overall vision, and I'm going to work through the rest of the strategy having this in mind. What's our target audience? We have to zoom in into specific target audience to make it worthwhile. Junior EVM developers. Why junior? Because if we can convert juniors, we can convert seniors. It's that easy. Why them? They are the easiest to onboard. They are already part of the industry, and they already have ideas, experience in the blockchain space. So the cost of converting them will be relatively low in comparison to any other audience. Today, they struggle with the initial steps of the development cycle, and adapting EVM architectures to the UTXO model. Mostly, that's like their biggest hurdle, because they already know the blockchain side, and the validation side, and the property-based testing side. Junior web developers, same as before, junior, because if we onboard juniors, we onboard everyone. They are the most cost-effective segment because they are a huge segment. They are the biggest segment by far, by orders of magnitude. So even if it's more expensive, the investment to onboard them, the initial investment, once it's done, the volume that we can convert is huge. So it's worth it. It also, like the interface with users, is largely done by websites, so that's one thing less to have to worry about. Today they struggle with virtually everything. And finally, technical entrepreneurs. They are the ones that start new projects and hire developers, and they struggle creating an MVP, identifying the advantages of Cardano over other ecosystems, which is like why they are trying things out. And they struggle onboarding developers to work on their project. Problems to solve, we already have those. No need to redefine. Like we just have to take the ones that we just learned about from the survey and plus them back in. There are huge issues, and I'm going to try to work to make a significant dent in at least 4 of those. Deliverables. So what's my plan? What I want to do? Well, trust me. To keep it on brand, I have a 5-year roadmap with really cool Greek names And you just trust me, bro. I just need 20 million and it's going to be done. No issues. But really, it's going to be a 6-month roadmap focused primarily on low effort, high impact tasks. This is like mutable, so don't worry. If it's something you don't like, you just tell me and we can change it or we can discuss it. But this is my plan so far. The items are alignment and collaboration, measure developer experience directly, because we don't have a direct measurement, developer hub, starter CLI, contracts library, reactive work, and outreach. The ones in black are less important, less impactful, and we can talk about those later if you want. Like we can go through specifically, like I have an open source version of the proposal that I already shared with several members of the community and got feedback through the last month. So everything is there, but for the sake of time, I'm going to talk only about alignment and collaboration and the 3 biggest items. There are like developer hub, starter CLI, and contracts library. What's the alignment and collaboration item? Well, the objective is to align the ecosystem around a shared developer experience vision and strategy and collaborate to pull in the same direction. What does that mean? Well, what we're doing right now. Discuss what we could do as builders, tooling and library and docs developers, and how to improve developer experience. I'm just kickstarting the conversation, but anyone else can finish it. And not only that, but if we actually agree on something, for example, that the CF developer portal should be the entry point for new developers, if we agree on that, please slightly adapt your individual roadmaps to at least not interfere. Better if you can collaborate, but if you were planning to create an alternative entry point for developers, please try to not do that after we agreed on a different one. We want to reduce fragmentation. Another thing I would like to do is map all ecosystem tooling libraries and documentation to create a comprehensive baseline of the current state, identify gaps and overlaps, and make educated decisions based on that. I would like to use bounties to incentivize community tooling, libraries, and documentation. So, for example, GitHoney, I could create a bounty there and asking for Aiken LSP to add support for auto import for VS Code, because I think there is in NeoVim, but I've been told that there's not in VS Code. So, for example, create a small bounty for that, and several other bounties that, with the aim of help ensure efforts and complement, help to ensure efforts that efforts are complementary rather than duplicated, and improve the overall developer experience and reduce paper cuts. I don't care about new functionality. I want developer happiness. That's my only goal. Why? Why we should do this? Well, to directly address the lack of ecosystem coordination. That was one of the main issues from the survey. To improve the interaction between toolings, libraries, and documentation, and reduce fragmentation, which is also a huge complaint from most developers. And to optimize resources. Let's just avoid duplicated work as much as possible. It's unavoidable sometimes, but as much as possible, just avoid duplicated work. The other one is the developer hub. I would like to have a single authoritative entry point for developers new to Cardano that consolidates and organizes onboarding content for our key user personas. We already identify our key user personas. Well, those have like 70 options, where like 5 are like palatable. What does that mean? Well, I would like to have a website that has a single source of truth for generic documentation. If you have documentation that is specific for your tooling, you should live in the documentation of the tooling. But if your tooling creates a transaction in a generic way, it should live in this place. Like there's a single explanation of how to mint, how to transact, how to create a single, like a minting token NFT. There should be a single explanation well done with a toggle of like 10 different toolings that you can use to do that transaction. And you can pick and choose whatever you want. But at least there's like one place that you can go independently or your preference as a developer. The prime candidate for this is the developer portal. I will tell you more about the why in the why section. And the properties I would like to go for are tailored for onboarding and NLM usage. I don't care about hackers that want to manipulate Cyber by hand. Those can like figure out by themselves. I care about the 99% that can do that. I would like to cover primarily concept, not specifically tools. Of course, you have to cover tools if you're going to like be effective as in onboarding new developers. But the actual explanation should be as much as possible, if not completely, conceptual, and have these like 15 toggles that are with code that is independent of the actual explanation as much as possible. A complete documentation, another huge issue currently. Like in a single place, you have like the basics, extend the UTXO, etc. Patterns, best practices, use cases, common vulnerabilities, etc., etc. Just a single place, you have everything. You don't need to like scavenger hunt documentation or like on repos and stuff. Especially if you're new and you have no idea about the companies that work on Cardano, the builders. You have zero. You are completely outside of the X bubble. So like you have no resources to find these tools. And of course, has to be always up to date. There has to be like a proper CI/CD pipeline to check that all code snippets still works, especially after a hard fork. Everything needs to keep working. Why? Well, to directly address the onboarding and fragmented documentation issues. And why the developer portal, where I made 50 queries about things that usually a new developer will search for, like, for example, creating a Cardano contract from scratch, or getting started with Cardano dApp development, and stuff like that. And after I did 50 queries of that, I mean, Claude did them, no, I didn't do it. But after doing them, somehow, I rank the domains that we have. As you can see, there's not a huge lead, but the lead is still developers.cardano.org, which is the developer portal. Second run in Reddit, interesting. But like we imagine having all these responses, like if you by yourself, depending on which query you write, you will get a post from 2021 from Plank explaining how to build a dApp, how to build a new dApp using the PIB. So yeah, not good. We need to fix this. So that's why I choose developers at Cardano.org, and not only I choose it because it has good SEO, but also because it already contains much, not all, but much of the information needed. It just needs some work. And also because I had several meetings with the Intersect Developer Experience Group and the CF Developer Rel teams, and they all agree that it will be a great idea to have the developer portal be the main entry point for new developers. So I would like to know if anyone is against that. Not in the current shape, right? Like a fixed developer portal. And yes, we have a question? No. Okay. Good, good, good. I know. So, the other one is a starter CLI. So, I want to create a CLI or slash website to easily start that projects using any stack combination. That's another thing. Like, we have a bunch of competing toolings from on-chain, off-chain, infrastructure, for everything. And it turns out that if I think I can do better, historically in Cardano, I will just create my alternative tool, and now we have another alternative that is competing for your attention. Amazing! Well, that's not the real solution. That's like a really, really bad solution. So what I want to do is something like Tank Stack Builder. I'm going to, hopefully the internet is good enough to show you how that will look like. So Tank Stack Builder is a GA, it's from the JS world. And the cool thing is that it has this interface when you can choose, like, I want React, I want Solid, whatever, and it changes. I want, like, you can choose different authentication, different databases, like different backends, different API frameworks, different OMMSs, different tooling, etc. And it will, like, prepare the starting project for you. And here you'll get a command. You just run this command in your computer, and everything is set up for you. Unsurprisingly, JS developers love this. I love this when I start a new website. And I want this for Cardano. It will make so much easier, not only starting the project, but also I don't have to do 2 weeks of research to find out which are the current tools that are up to date, that still work, that are maintained, and that everyone uses. It's going to be there, right? This is what I would love to have in Cardano. So, important thing, it doesn't replace existing tooling. I don't want to compete with anyone. I want to pull everyone together, just provide a thin layer of great developer experience. And after everything is created and the developer is onboarded, it's up to you, it's your tooling. Like, your tooling needs to work, and but at least we remove this huge wall in the first week or two. It provides a way to easily compare and choose which tools to use. If you're a Go developer or a Scala developer, it can be hard to find out that there are toolings for you. But if you just Google generic terms without specifying, you will never know, at least not until you're already halfway through your project. So this will solve this. We would like to add agents, files, and skills, and MCPs, and all that thing to leverage LLMs, because that's the future, and it's here, and even if you don't like it, we have to adapt. So we want to ensure that developer not only starts well, but also can keep going well, and LLMs are pretty much essential nowadays. I would like to add a way to help to onboard new developers by providing links to documentation. So if you choose Aiken, you will be redirected to TXPipe Discord server so you can ask questions there. For example, if you use Mesh, you will have a link for the Mesh Discord server, and you can ask questions there, etc. Ideally, it will also be able to install everything. If you don't have the tooling, if you already do and you don't care, you can just opt out. And another important thing is that everything that can be upstream will be upstream. If I need to, like, package a tooling for Brew or something, instead of doing it at my level as the starter CLI, that should be upstream to the tooling and then use downstream. Why? Well, I mean, it's obvious at this point, but it directly addresses 3 out of 5 issues, like the fragmented tooling issue, the subpar developer experience, and the difficulty getting started and onboarding. It significantly reduced the time to MVP for new projects. They don't have to do a bunch of research because it's given to you. You are connected to the community as soon as you create the project. It provides important grounding to speed up development with LLMs. It makes it easy for newcomers because it significantly reduces time to find and research tooling, and it reduces the cost of experimenting with different stacks. Like if you're not happy after 2 days with one stack, you can just create a new one, an alternative one, and try it out there. Really low cost. And finally, the contracts library. I would like to design and implement a library of standardized, ready to go, reusable smart contracts with an initial focus on building blocks and DeFi. What does that mean? Inspired by OpenZeppelin, a library inspired by OpenZeppelin, but heavily optimized for use cases. If you have a common use case, you should be able to import a library that has a written and audited contract doing exactly what you need, and you have to just provide 3 or 4 parameters, and it's ready to go. And if you don't, there's other use case for this. It should contain on-chain and off-chain. Why? Because on-chain is not enough. We know this. Like OpenZeppelin is like on-chain because both rules and intent live on the on-chain, but in Cardano, the intent lives in the off-chain, so we need both to have a properly ready-to-go contract / protocol. With thoroughly documented code and documentation, that's the next use case. Like it has to be LLM ready. And we'll start with, in this case, because 6 months is not enough and we have to do all the other stuff as well, I would like to start with 1 on-chain and 1 off-chain implementations, but having everything ready for tooling developers to add their own implementation. So if you are, Mikel is not here, so Pebble is out. Now, if if you are a Scalus developer, Pebble developer, Mesh, a TX3, you can just add your implementation to this. The idea is to have multiple options and to have at least 3 to 5 contracts ready to audit by the end of year. Why? Well, it directly addresses poor documentation, poor onboarding, and immature library issues. We will have great documentation because that code is going to be well documented. We will have great onboarding because in the case that you don't need something new, complex, you can just pick whatever there is and that's it. It significantly reduces time to market for dApps that require those or similar contracts. So if you have to change it, you can change it, but it's so well documented and it already optimized for real world usage, then you can just tweak it a little bit and then yeah, you'll have to audit them again. Well, that's your cost, but at least you don't have to start from scratch, which is the current scenario. And it's not the scenario in many other ecosystems. It provides a set of real-world smart contracts that can be used as inspiration for technical entrepreneurs, as training material to move from beginner to intermediate, that developer, and examples to ground LLMs. So what will be the success metrics? Like in an ideal world, it will be having positive relative growth rate, of course. That will be like the best, but it's not everything dependent on developer experience. So we have to conform to having clear improvements in developer surveys showing that developer opinion about the Vex significantly changed after that. Now I will bet that it will if we implement this. So let's just pull in the same direction. What I need from you, I need your help, I need your opinion, I need your support, I need your contributions and collaborations. Let's build building in Cardano could be easy. We just need to work together to achieve it. Thank you.